Hello, in today's video we will be going over some of the ideologies developed in the 19th century. To begin with, we will first take it all the way back to the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution, which triggered dramatic political and social consequences, as well as new theories or ideologies. The ideologies that emerged due to the 19th century revolutions that we will also be going over today includes conservatism, liberalism, socialism, nationalism, romanticism, and feminism. So, the first ideology we will go over today is conservatism. This is an ideology which values the status quo and accepts change only, reluctantly and at a very slow pace. This movement was in reaction to liberalism and became an alternative for those who were frightened by the violence, terror, and social disorder of the French Revolution, as well as the Napoleonic Wars and ideas of the Enlightenment. It can be considered a backwards-looking movement due to the belief that times were better in the past. Edmund Burke, a conservative, wrote what is called the Reflections on the Revolutions in France in 1790, which is a forceful expression of conservatives' rejection of the French Revolution, as well as a major inspiration for counter-revolutionary theorists in the 19th century. This ideal attracted predominantly aristocracy in the landed property, more so people who valued the old regime. Conservatives wanted to preserve the traditional order and dominated much of the first half of the 19th century. Conservatives also wanted to preserve European monarchies and nobility due to the belief that only these traditional institutions of government could maintain order. Next, we will go over liberalism, perhaps the most important ideology born in the 19th century, one that still drives politics and economists in many countries today. Liberalism in the 19th century stemmed from the Enlightenment idea that a man possessed a certain set of basic rights and liberties, which were conferred to each individual upon their birth. Liberalism established the first major theory that saw the individual as having certain natural rights. It saw the individual as a self-sufficient being whose freedom and well-being were the sole reasons for the existence of society. It commonly attracted the bourgeoisie class, which was made up of many white-collar workers and factory owners. The reason that this attracted many factory owners was because of a new economic policy developed by the ideas of Adam Smith. Laissez-faire emerged out of Wealth of Nations, first published in 1776, as a form of economic liberalism which argued for a free market system, with no government intervention in social and economic affairs. Liberalism became a major force in France during the revolutions of 1830 and 1848, as well as the contribution towards most of the important reforms in Britain by 1850, including the Reform Bill of 1832 and the repeal of the Corn Laws in 1846. Counter to liberalism was socialism, which sought economic equality for all and was very much against the laissez-faire ideal of liberalism. Socialism was certainly the 19th century's most radical ideology. Though liberalism and conservatism would remain the chief political ideologies in Europe during the 19th century, this period saw the emergence of socialism, which would influence much of the class politics of this time period. As liberalism and conservatism took the individual as the most important political unit, aiming to protect their individual rights, socialism was more concerned with bettering the political and social conditions of the society as a whole. Socialists had a desire to reorganize society to establish cooperation and a new sense of community. Also, socialism looked at the free market economies of Western Europe in the midst of the Industrial Revolution and saw exploited workers leading miserable existences, while manufacturers profited enormously. Socialists felt that with the rich profiting so much, the poor should get some of the benefits, since workers' labor supported the entire system. Robert Owen, a manufacturer in Manchester, grew upset at his workers' living conditions and began paying higher wages than other manufacturers did. In fact, Owen did fairly well in business despite giving his workers a higher wage than the ordinary. Robert Owen was a utopian socialist along with Charles Fourier, who believed in helping the laboring poor and sought to create a cooperative utopian society. Another type of socialism that emerged from this idea was scientific socialism or Marxism, developed by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Now we're going to take a look at nationalism, a relatively modern concept, with the ideas that a nation is composed of people who are joined together by the bonds of a common language, as well as common customs, culture, and history, and so, because of these bonds, should be administered by the same government. Many nationalists believe that a common language, history, and shared traditions would bring about unity and common loyalties. Nationalism also refers to devotion for one's own nation's interests over all other nations. It signifies a particular love for your country or nation. This served as an important factor in the development of Europe. A wave of nationalism in the 19th century swept the European continent, transforming its countries such as Germany and Italy, with leaders such as Giuseppe Mazzini. The next ideal is Romanticism, and unlike other isms, Romanticism isn't directly political, but more intellectual. It was a movement based on nature, beauty, and emotion. It was also primarily based around arts and forms of literature like poetry. In England, Shelley and Keats embodied Romanticism. Romanticism was also prevalent in Germany by poets such as Johann Wolfgang von Goethe and thinkers like George William Friedrich Hegel. Romanticism was developed as a reaction from the Enlightenment, a time of rational thinking and reason, rather than the Romantics who argued that this wasn't the answer, and more so emotion over reason. Romantics valued emotion over reason by focusing on the human senses, passion, and faith. It was the basic idea that reason couldn't explain everything. So, Romantics really didn't agree to any of the Enlightenment views. For example, the Enlightenment thinkers condemned the Middle Ages as the Dark Ages, a period of ignorance and irrationality. The Romantics, on the other hand, idealized the Middle Ages as a time of spiritual depth and adventure. The last ideology we will look into is feminism, which emerged greatly during the 19th century. Even though feminism had obviously been around before the 19th century, it is during this time period when the movement truly caught on and began to make progress. Feminist ideas were abound in Europe, but activists such as Mary Wollstonecraft and Flora Tristan, who fought for women's rights in all aspects of society, whether political, social, cultural, or economic. Mary Wollstonecraft was one of the most prominent feminists in the late 18th century and well into the 19th century. She fought for change on all feminist fronts, especially in the publication of the Vindication of the Rights of Women in 1792. Surprisingly, there were also men involved in the feminist movement, such as John Stuart Mill. As a British philosopher, Mill advocated for equality primarily through his work, published in 1869, The Subjection of Women.